Hey, what's good? J Boogie in full effect mode. Bun down is the sound. You know how we do. This is, of course, the Lounge Presents podcast, number 154. And to finish off 2024, honestly, who better than this gentleman right here, Rob Swift?
What up? What up?
Yes, yes. Once again, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you again for taking out the time out to do it. But we got some ting and ting to cover. So let's start right at the top. How are you first introduced to hip hop culture?
Through my brother. I have an older brother named John, who's actually a 5%er, so we call him Universal.
Hey,
And he basically was born in Colombia, South America. My father immigrated here in 1969, got himself established. Then in 1971, sent for my mom and my older brother. So I say that to say my brother came up with that first wave, that first generation of kids in New York City immersing themselves in graffiti, breaking, DJing, MCing. My brother was absorbing it all from the start. And so by 1979, when I was about 8 years old, I asked my brother to teach me how to break because
hey,
hip hop just seemed like such a fun way to express yourself creatively. And at 8 years old, you're not necessarily worried about dancing with girls, and breaking is something that you could do by yourself. You could dance alone. So my brother taught me how to break in 1979, and that's how I got introduced to the hip hop culture movement that was taking
right.
place in the 1970s, specifically in the Bronx, but in the outer boroughs as well, like
Right.
Queens, where I came up.
There you go. There you go. What was being played at home when you were growing up?
So again, I am the son of Colombian parents. So my dad brought over his love for salsa, merengue,
Hey,
cumbia, the kind of Latin rhythms that were popular in Choco, Colombia, where my dad is from. And coincidentally, when my dad got himself established, sent for my mom and my brother, and had me here in 1972 in Queens, New York City, the truth of the matter is, bro, we grew up poor, man. We didn't have much, We grew up in
yeah.
a one-bedroom apartment on 3752 89th Street in Jackson Heights, Queens. And we lived in a tenement building. And all of us, all of the residents of this building pretty much lived on top of each other, man. It was
Hmm.
a very humble beginnings for us. So I say that to say my dad, to make extra money, decided to pick up DJing. So
Hey,
he brought all of the state of the art gear, turntables. I remember to this day, he still has them at home. One 1300 Technique turntable, and he also got
nice,
a 1600 Technique turntable. And
nice.
unlike the turntables behind me, where the pitch knob is a dial that you move from left to right,
Yeah.
the pitch dial on the 1600 and the 1300 turntable is a knob that you would
Rotary.
twist.
Rotary.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Hey.
So I'm thankful to my father because without him realizing it, he brought home gear to make money, to pay the rent and put food on the table, but without him realizing it, to allow my brother to DJ the way he was hearing his heroes like
Mhm.
Grandmaster Flash, Jazzy J, Tony Tone, Charlie Chase, cut it up on the mixtapes that he was getting his hands on. So
Mhm.
those DJs were using the kind of gear that my father bought to make extra money.
Mhm.
And so it worked out perfect. So my brother, dude, he for me was like this portal into the hip hop culture because again, he was immersed in it,
Yeah.
but my father definitely plays an integral role in the DJing aspect of
Mm-hmm.
my family. You know, like
Yeah.
basically the Los Aguilares, the Aguilar family,
Yes.
are a family of DJs. My father was a DJ. Thanks to my father, my brother started DJing without my father knowing because he didn't want my brother touching his gear.
Of
And
course.
my brother taught me how to DJ as well. So, like I said, my brother was the portal into hip hop, the four elements. My father specifically allowed us to interact with the DJ element.
That's dope. That's dope. But DJing wasn't what you first dabbled in, if I'm not mistaken.
No, like I was saying earlier, breaking is the first element
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
interacted with. I was first a b-boy. And
Hey.
here in Jackson Heights, Queens, in the late 70s and early 80s, there was a roller skating rink called USA Roller Skating.
Okay.
And that for us here in Jackson Heights, the youth, was the epicenter of hip hop. And I always reference this when I get asked what hip hop was like in Jackson Heights in the late 70s and early 80s. You know, or are you familiar with the movie Star Wars?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So remember the scene when Rocksteady battled against Dynamic Rockers?
Yep. Yep.
That was
Pivotal.
filmed at USA Roller Skating Rink. It was
Okay.
a roller skating rink that at the time where I lived on 89th Street was 20 blocks from my home. So we would
Oh,
walk
damn.
there, us kids from the neighborhood, and b-boy, roller skate, talk to girls, take
Yep.
in hip hop concerts from the likes of Just Ice, Run DMC, Fearless 4, Cold Crush, Coogee Rap, New Edition. The list
Hey.
goes on and on. Curtis Blow, who's who in hip hop in the late 70s and early 80s performed at USA. So that for us was like the Hevalo in the Bronx
Yeah.
or the Disco Fever. You know what I mean? That was
Yeah.
our place to go to take in hip hop and battle kids as breakers.
One thing I want to ask you, when you first got into breaking, what was it about breaking that drew you in?
It just looked cool. You know, there's really no fancy answer to that. It just looked
Yeah.
cool, and
Hell yeah.
my brother did it as well. And as a kid, your brother, especially if he's older than you,
Yep.
significantly older, is going to be your idol, right?
Yep.
You want to be like him with regards to sports, with regards to macking on the girls, and he used to break. So I would see him break at house parties that I would go to with him, and it just looked like a way to say, yo, I'm dope at something.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Because in New York City in the 1970s and 80s, we're talking about the inner city where youth really didn't have many options to exercise their energy.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like I have
Yep.
fond memories of my friends and I playing tag on the street, bro, like dodging cars.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for amusement, we climb fire escapes and jump roofs. Like we
Yeah.
used to do crazy shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yep.
So back then, it's not like growing up in Jackson Heights, although it was Queens, and people have this perception of Queens being the suburbs of New
Mm-hmm.
York. Jackson Heights wasn't, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was rough. It might not have been burning like the Bronx, but I can tell you stories of seeing a dead body right in front of my building, you know,
Damn. Yeah.
in the middle of the day, bro. Like
Mm.
seeing a dead body outside. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that for shock value. It was just the
Yeah,
reality
that
of
was just the reality.
growing
Yeah.
up in that section of Jackson Heights in the late 70s, early 80s. Then Giuliani came and fixed up New York, and you know,
Yeah.
my part of Queens, Jackson Heights, where I still live, looks a little different. But again, we didn't have many options, so USA was our escape to, or let me rephrase that. USA was like our alternative to being in the streets.
There you go.
And if you were there, more likely than not, you were going to interact with kids from other boroughs, Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, and a lot of these kids used to break. So I wanted to learn, and my brother taught me, and that was definitely, the first element that I interacted with.
Now, breaking is one method of expression that hip hop culture was responsible for, but you then leaned into another form of expression, DJing. And ultimately that's obviously what you stuck with. What was it about DJing that made you stick with that instead of breaking?
Well, just for clarification's sake, I interacted with every element of hip hop. I started off as a breaker in 1979. Before I started DJing, I was actually a graffiti writer.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So I ran, and I referenced this a lot as well in a lot of my recent interviews. I ran with a crew of kids by the time I got to the 6th grade here in Jackson Heights that were the popular kids immersed in hip hop in our neighborhood. So
Okay.
it was Little Ram, Ramiro from Jackson Heights, Puerto Rican, my boy David Soto, Jackson Heights as well, native Puerto Rican, my boy Nay, whose real name is Joey, another Puerto Rican from Jackson Heights. And we had a white boy down with us, and we used to call him White Boy Billy. So it
They
was
always have the name White Boy.
word. It was White Boy Billy, who was white, Joey, Little Ram, David, who were Puerto Rican, and myself. Now, when they first met me, they thought I was Black American. Obviously, you
Hmm.
look at me, you're going to assume I'm born here,
Right.
but I'm Colombian. So it was just a dope mix of ethnicities in this little crew of kids that I used to run with. And obviously, we didn't care about our differences with regards to skin, pigment, or nationality or ethnicity. All that mattered to us was, yo, can you break?
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that crew up is because Joey Nay was a graffiti writer. So in the 6th grade, he became my mentor and taught me how to write
Mm.
graffiti and gave me my graffiti name, which was
Dope.
Rob Ski back then.
Nice, nice.
And yeah, so I interacted with every element. After graffiti, I decided I was tired of spectating and watching my dad and brother DJ,
Hmm.
and I wanted to learn as well. Again, my father didn't want us touching his gear, and so my brother would teach me how to DJ behind my dad's back. When my dad
Right.
would go off to work and my mom would leave with him, my brother would turn my dad's equipment on and teach me the ins and outs of DJing. Later on in the 1980s, I picked up rapping, and I have demo tapes of myself
Ooh,
rapping
okay.
with Psycho Les from the Beat Nuts doing production.
Okay.
And we used to send these tapes to different record labels: Def Jam, Profile,
Of
Sleeping Bag,
course. Yep,
Fresh
yep.
Records, Tommy Boy, Vintertainment. Every record label that put out hip hop
That's
music in the
crazy.
80s received one of my demos for sure.
That is
And
wild.
yeah,
Yo, this is the first time hearing it for real. I did not know you were on your demo hustles too,
yep.
man.
Sending cassette
Jeez.
tapes of songs that we did at Psycho Les's house. He had this
That's dope.
little, he had like, he had this, not this specific keyboard,
Yeah.
but a keyboard like it. It was a Casio. And I remember Les was so resourceful, man. This to me is quintessential hip hop shit. His keyboard, if you press down on one of the keys, you'd be able to loop a beat. But if
Nice.
you let go of the keypad, the beat would stop playing. So
Right.
he would take pieces of tape, press down on the keyboard key, and then take the tape. And as he's pressing down, tape the key to the bottom of the keyboard so that the beat
So
would loop.
keep going.
Yeah,
Oh,
so keep
nice.
going. Yeah, yeah,
Nice.
word. Psycho less.
Yo, but that's, I mean, that's literally talking about hip hop just in general, being resourceful,
Yes.
right? Like taking things that were not meant for, the end product, and being able to create out of that. That's literally
Yeah,
hip hop's blueprint.
I talk a lot about that in my book, The City of Hip Hop, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But since we're on the subject,
Yeah.
to me, authentic hip hop is about what you can do with nothing. That's
Well
authentic hip
put.
hop.
Well put.
You know, a breaker breaks on cardboard because he doesn't have a dance studio, or
Yep.
she.
Yep.
A rapper raps because he can't sing. A graffiti writer takes a spray can to a wall or a train and uses his city or her city as a canvas because he can't afford to go to art school.
Exactly.
A DJ turns a turntable into an instrument because he or she doesn't have access to band in junior high school or high school
Exactly.
because the city defunded music programs. You know what I mean? So hip
Yep.
hop, for me, at its core, in its most authentic way, is you making something out of nothing. You take lemons and make lemonade. So
Agree completely.
I love that I was able to experience that through my brother, through Psycho Les, my interactions with that crew of kids that I used to break with. I got to experience hip hop in its rawest form. And I feel like nowadays everything is so curated, right? And so you're
Oh yeah.
told what hip hop songs to play on New Year's Eve. You're
Yeah.
you're told what videos to watch with regards to DJ battles. You're told everything, how to do it, when to do it, because social media is such a big influencer.
Yeah.
You know, now with regards to creativity, hip hop to me is a do it yourself aesthetic. So you figure out a way to get creative with whatever you have.
Yeah.
And to this day, that's why you'll always see me with turntables performing and pushing the authentic gear and mindset overall that a hip hop head should have,
No
because
doubt.
that's what I, grew up doing and experiencing and interacting with.
I hear that completely. Now, you mentioned the book. We might as well ask you. Now, it's called The City of Hip Hop, New York City, the Bronx, and a Peace Meeting. Now, you had a reason why you wanted to write this book. Sorry, co-authored the book with Russell Mowat,
Rasul Mowatt.
right? So, what led to the inspiration to put pen to paper for this?
So I'd say right towards the end of the pandemic lockdown, circa August, September 2021, I started noticing online this narrative surrounding hip hop exclusively belonging to Black people.
Yep. Yep.
Specifically, and we have to be very careful how we talk about this because
Yeah.
I consider myself Black.
Yeah.
But the people that were proliferating this dumb ass narrative make a distinction between Afro-Colombian and Afro-American.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them don't even identify with Africa. So maybe I shouldn't even put the Afro in front of the American. They consider themselves as Black American.
Mm-hmm.
And in their eyes, if your lineage doesn't trace back to slavery here in America, then you have no birthright to hip hop culture.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because to me, hip hop culture isn't a birthright, it's a creative right. Hip hop belongs to the people that do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong to a race arbitrarily because of the color of the skin that they wear. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
it's just really this dumb, stupid, divisive, retarded narrative that I started noticing in 2021, about August, September. And so at first, I'd see shit on Twitter, for example, and I thought, all right, these are Gen Zers that know nothing about hip hop. And so I got to school these people. So I would get into debates with them, arguments. And number one, I started noticing that their retort to what I would say to correct them would be racist comments like, you're Latino filth, or you're a culture vulture, all kind of crazy shit.
Yeah.
Which was like
wild
to me.
Then they could say that to you.
They could say that to me because I've been doing this since 1979 non-stop. Every single day since 1979, I've interacted with some aspect of hip hop non-stop. And I have now like some random chick on Twitter that's only been on that app for about a year.
Yeah.
Talking to me about I'm a culture vulture. You know what I'm saying? So when I started realizing that there was more to this than a young generation of kids that really didn't understand the history of hip hop and how it developed and cultivated itself, and began to like peep, like, nah, these are nationalists. These are people that are taking talking points from conservatives like MAGA and applying it to their ideology. You know, these are xenophobes. These are people that know nothing about the culture but want to co-opt it because they want to lump it into their whole reparations argument. You know, they believe these people, these xenophobes, racists, nationalists, believe that America owes them reparations. Now, I'm not here to argue that.
Right.
You could feel that way, but don't try to co-opt hip hop. You know what I mean? And that is what I started to discover, that it was a situation where hip hop was being taken hostage, you know? And so when I realized that, I decided, yeah, man, I need to write more online about the culture and the history. I have a DJ school called Brolic Army DJ School. And I referenced that to say I didn't want my students, a lot of them who are white, Latino, Asian, feeling ostracized or stumbling across a post from some racist weirdo talking about if you're a Latino or outside of the black race, black American race, you're a guest in the house of hip hop, which is another dumbass narrative. Yeah, I didn't want my students thinking that that was true. So I started writing more about hip hop from my perspective. And I have a friend named Janice Chalmers who actually lives in the United Kingdom. And she would watch my posts, read them, and one day she was just like, Rob, you need to write a book about this stuff because I'm learning things about this culture that I never stopped to really think about. And thanks to your post, although it's sort of sad that you're writing about it for the reasons that you are, right? To clarify these
Yeah.
negative narratives, to put it nicely, you need to write a book that's an official, comprehensive take on what this culture is. Because in a lot of my posts, I was talking about how hip hop wasn't necessarily created.
Right.
And I feel like that's a narrative that honestly we need to dig deeper about. And what I mean is Kool Herc, and I mean this with no disrespect. I
Of
have
course. Of
the
course.
utmost respect for Kool Herc,
Of
but
course.
the narrative is that Kool Herc, when he threw that party for his sister Cindy in 1973 on August 11th at 1520 Cedric Avenue, that was the start of hip hop culture. And my thing is, that's a very simplistic
Yes.
way to talk about a culture
Exactly.
that came together for reasons that honestly, talking about one party on August 11th, 1973, don't do it justice. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
not really. Not really.
Right. So in my commentary online, I would talk about, and podcast interviews that I was appearing on in these months, right, of this whole thing bubbling up to the 50th anniversary thing, meaning this narrative that like now hip hop belongs to black people exclusively. I do podcasts and talk about my perception of what hip hop is. I'd write about it and talk about my take on this culture. And again, Janice would read, would watch the podcast. And one day she just sent me a DM on Instagram and was like, Rob, you need to write a book. And at first I was dismissive about the idea because I never pictured myself as an author. Although I can write you a nice, interesting caption on Instagram, writing a book is something completely different, obviously. So I never really saw myself as a writer. I'm a DJ. I'm a hip hop artist. I'm a teacher of this art. But in being a teacher of this art, I realized that there are more ways than one to educate people. And I don't have to just rely on teaching people through the turntable. I can use my pen, and that's finally what I decided to do. I sort of gave in to Janice's pressure and started writing the book in March of 2023 and completed it. Halfway through, I tapped Rasul A Mowatt, who's a professor at NC State in North Carolina. Tapped him to help me finish the book about halfway through, and we were done by May of 2024.
Damn. That's I can't stress the fact that I'm glad that you did write this because first of all, you're adding to, hip hop's bibliography. We can't have enough books written by architects in the culture, and you arguably are one of the architects of this culture. So, adding another title to hip hop's bibliography, yes, most definitely. Please, we need more. That's just the straight up truth. But I love how that narrative, which, as you can see, is still somewhat in the air. You still see pockets of this narrative here and there, all willy nilly, on various social media. And it to me, it's important that someone like you writes this because part of the narrative that we're talking about, some of the opinions were coming from very notable figures. And you just kind of go, what the fuck is going on? Did he just say, oh, damn? You know what I mean? So you need that counterbalance when you have figures who are associated with the culture saying just some wild ass shit.
I agree 100%. Here's the thing with
Yeah.
that, bro. I feel like, and I'm gonna be very blunt and honest, and I don't give a
As you should.
fuck. I don't
As
give
you
a
should.
fuck who takes issue with this. Okay, so fine. Some of these people were notable figures in hip hop. You're talking about the actual practitioners, those of who have come out in the last 3 years or so to say, yeah, hip hop is black culture and all other races are guests in the house of hip hop. If you're a first generation rapper, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
that feels that way, you have a right to. But what I'd say to that is, who are you to claim someone that's been doing it since 1979 all the way through 2024 is a guest in a culture that you probably interacted with from 1976 to 1983?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like a
Yeah.
lot of these pillars of hip hop, first generation pioneers, stopped doing it. And what I mean by doing it is putting out music
Yeah.
or dancing
Yeah.
or writing graph,
Yeah.
right? Or
Completely.
DJing. A lot of them stopped by 1984, 1985. Whereas, speaking as a Colombian born here in New York City who embraces his blackness and his Latino heritage,
Right.
I've been doing it since 1979. So let's
There you
see,
go.
1979, 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. We're talking about more than 4 decades, right? Doing this. And you're going to call me a guest? Get the fuck out of here, yo.
That's
Get the
called Rob
fuck out of
schooling
here.
you, by the way.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
called you done been schooled.
So, I don't care if you were a first Zulu King B-boy.
Yeah.
I don't care if you were at the first hip hop party, quote unquote, 1973, August 11th, 1520 Cedric Avenue. I don't care if you are a first generation graffiti artist. I don't care if you were one of the first people to rap at a party. If you stop doing this by the late 70s, early 80s, there ain't shit you could tell me. Because not only have I done it longer, I've actually contributed more to the music industry, not just hip hop, but the music industry. I've appeared in movies, I've appeared in commercials, I've starred in TV shows, sports talk shows, regular talk shows. I've toured. There isn't. I wrote a book. I mean, there ain't shit. There ain't shit you could tell me. And
Nah,
honestly,
nah,
there isn't
nah.
anything. There honestly, I've toured with rappers. I've done my own tours as a solo DJ
Yep.
artist. So there ain't shit that a first generation hip hop practitioner that did it for about 2-3 years can tell me about being a guest.
And it's like that. There you go. There's really no other way to put it.
There
Straight
isn't.
up and
We
down.
could
Nah,
we
there
could
really
end
isn't.
this conversation right now.
Straight up, straight up. Well, yo, man, I wanna like as we wrap things up, I really wanna salute you for your contributions to the culture. You were one of the first DJs to get out there and actually put out product when you dropped the Ableist.
No doubt.
When you did that, it was like, yes, that's progression. That's progression right there. When the DJs start to take all their ideas and creativity and express them in another manner on wax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hell
And the
yes.
thing is although there were DJ records
Yeah.
before the ableist, big
Yeah.
shout to Grand Mixer DST,
Oh
who was
yeah,
a
for sure.
huge influence on
Woo.
me. His song Crazy Cuts
Yes.
on, I believe it was Celluloid Records, that shit changed my life. And it,
Mm.
for me, provided a blueprint for how to handle myself in a recording studio as a DJ without a rapper, right?
Yep.
So DJ oriented songs existed before the ableist, but what I will say is that there weren't full albums that centered around the DJ.
Yep.
And I don't mean the DJ tapping a bunch of rappers to rap. I mean
No.
the DJ, like it's just
Producing the record.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Producing the record, writing the music via scratches.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That wasn't happening in the 80s. And I definitely tap myself, or I should say pat myself on the back as being one of the DJs that helped create a lane for
Ah,
the
for real.
DJs today to do this shit. You know what I mean?
Nah,
And
for
make a
real.
living off this art form that, again, was created by young black teens. That's something that you can't deny.
No.
In the mid 1970s, big shout to Grand Wizard Theodore,
All
who
day.
we credit for introducing this concept of scratching, you know, moving the record back and forth to Coke sound for people to hear, opposed to doing it in your headphones when you're about to drop a song. Big ups to Grandmaster Flash for
Yes.
cultivating techniques like the quick mix and the clock theory,
Yep.
the predecessor for what we know now to be beat juggling.
Exactly. Yep.
Big ups to Grand Mixer DST again.
Yes.
His work with Herbie
Yes.
Hancock really changed
Yes.
my life. Rocket, that song, dude. Watching him perform it
Mm.
at the Grammy Awards with
The
Herbie Hancock.
inspiration.
Yeah, man, with the band behind him.
Woo.
DST's there cutting up fresh. Look, as far as hip hop is concerned, there is no denying that young black teens were amongst the first bricklayers of this art, especially, or I should say specifically, when it comes to DJing and rapping.
Yeah.
But there ain't nobody out there, no pioneer, no first generation hip hop head that could tell me whites, Latinos weren't a part of the initial graffiti movement, because they were.
Yeah.
And when it comes to b-boying, well, before I even talk about b-boying, with regards to graffiti, big ups to Taki 183, one of the first graffiti writers, the writer that really made this into a movement and not just someone writing on a wall, but
Right.
turned it into a movement. Big ups to Tracy 168.
Say word.
Bro, that guy revolutionized graffiti with his wild style
Mm-hmm.
approach to camouflaging words and colors and shit. And then when it comes to b-boying, you had original crews like TBB, the Bronx Boys,
Yep.
that were laying the foundation for the footwork that we see b-boys do now. Crazy Commandos crew, Star Child LaRock, big ups to Track 2, big ups to Spy, big ups to Batch. I mean, these are legendary b-boys that were right there, a part of that first generation of breakers alongside Zulu Kings like Beaver and Charlie Rock, who are black. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
hip hop isn't just the rapping and the DJing. Hip hop
No.
is 4 elements.
Yep.
And when you see it that way, you understand that other races took part in the development of
Say word.
what became this culture now that's $1 billion industry.
Say word. Whoo, there you go. Just like that. Man, I really want to thank you for spending time with us, Rob.
No doubt.
The book is out now, and they
The
can cop
City
it
of
on.
Hip Hop.
They can cop it on Amazon.
They can cop it on Amazon.com,
There you go.
BarnesandNobles.com. You could order it straight from the publisher. Big ups to Rutledge for believing in the project. I want to give a big shout to my co-author, Rasul Mowatt. Bro, I love you, man. Salute to you. Rasul helped me make sense out of my ideas regarding what hip hop is. And this book would not be if it wasn't for his help. So thank you, Rasul.
There you
And
go.
big ups to everybody that has purchased the book so far. I'm getting DMs right and left on a daily from people posting pictures of themselves holding the book. And that means a lot, bro. I know in
That's
this
sick.
day and age of social media and us taking in information from our phones, picking up a book and reading it isn't necessarily what you would normally do these
Right?
days.
Mm-hmm.
And so to everyone that has spent their hard-earned money on the book, I love you and I appreciate you and thanks a lot.
And it's like that. Rob, I hope this isn't the last time we're able to get you on. We'd
Word.
definitely love to have you back. You know what I'm saying?
Let's do it.
There you go. Thank you once again, Rob Swift.